final is underway. We're at the 250-meter mark. Lane assignments: Lane 1, University of Texas. Lane 2, Washington State. Lane 3, Duke. Lane 4, Sacramento State. Lane 5, University of Iowa. Lane 6, University of San Diego. Your race leader, the Blue Devils from Duke in Lane 3. They have about a 5-seat advantage over Washington State in Lane 2. And then the next crew would be Iowa. And then very close, the crew that's trailing right now is in Lane 1, University of Texas, the Longhorns. Right. Roger. All right, 500 meters, here's the call. First across the 500-meter mark is Duke University, followed by Washington State. And then outside, it's University of San Diego, University of Iowa, Sacramento State, and Texas in Lane 1 trails the fleet.
Checking our lane assignments once again. As Jim mentioned, University of Texas is in Lane 1. Washington State in lane number 2, and they are fighting for the lead against lane number 3, Duke University, currently at the head of this pack. In lane number 4, it's Sacramento State. Lane 5 is Iowa, and in lane number 6, the University of San Diego.
Now, from the heats times yesterday, you would expect this to be a Washington State out in the lead. They seem to have had a less than stellar start and find themselves a little bit back in the pack at the moment. But Washington State finished in 6:57 yesterday, whereas all the other people in the race were 7:05, 7:06, 7:07. So one would expect this to be very close between the other 5 crews, but one would expect to see Washington State dominating. But that is not the story in this race. Washington State got away slowly, and the crew that's upped it a notch to really throw out a challenge is the crew in lane 3 from Duke University.
All the way on the outside, Iowa is beginning to creep into the picture here. And they are looking to challenge Washington State in lane number 2. Texas in lane 5 continues to backpedal. Then comes Duke University, certainly not off the pace. And trailing a little bit is going to be Sacramento State on the outside in lane number 4.
Yes, Alan, Washington State, after that indifferent first 500, have really had a very, very strong second 500. So it looks as though they're starting to assert themselves on this race, and it looks as though they are starting to show the sort of form that gave them a time some 8 seconds faster in the heats than the rest of the crews in this race.
Washington State pressing for the lead and on it. Iowa shadowing them on the far outside. And then looking for a little open water back, actually, to Duke falling off the pace as they had a good run early, and apparently they got off to a good start. But Washington State decided, bad start or no, we're taking this thing over. University of San Diego on the far outside has certainly not gone away. Duke is fading, as I mentioned, and then the University of Texas got off to a very poor start and are back quite a bit of open water.
Yes, it's the 3 crews that did the slowest times from the heats. That's the University of San Diego, Sacramento State, and the University of Texas, who seem to be falling back into the back 3 positions in this race, maybe falling into a little race of their own. And out front, it's Washington State, who are maintaining their dominance, Duke, and the University of Iowa, who are challenging for the top 3 positions.
Along the shoreline in the gold jerseys, Washington State University out of Pullman, Washington, ever so slightly edging away and trying to hide. Iowa on the outside trying to keep pace. Duke University seems to have found their stroke again, but the University of San Diego keeps creeping up a little bit at a time on the outside with the Sacramento State, and trailing is the University of Texas.
Yes, the Washington State have kept asserting their dominance here. It's not as big a margin as one might have expected, but they're certainly powering away at the front of this field. Iowa do not look like they have a final sprint in them, and Duke also look like they're struggling to take the rating up in order to get a final sprint, and both of those are starting to come under pressure from the University of San Diego.
This is Washington State on the lead. On the outside, University of Iowa in the yellow jerseys and the white shell, and now it is Duke University trying to get back into it, and then all the way on the outside, the University of San Diego had been creeping up, but they have now fallen back as they go into their sprints. And then Sacramento State, and trailing is Texas. Back to our finish line, looking at Washington State, now with a couple of boat lengths almost of open water. It looks like Iowa will hold off a late charge by Duke. On the outside, University of San Diego made a run at it but fell back. And then the final two crews, Sacramento State and the University of Texas. So the apparent yet unofficial winner of the Women's Collegiate Second Varsity Petite Final, the Jackie Ann Stitt Hungness Trophy, will be Washington State University.
Four minutes.
Why don't you step on that?